Hero augments are the core mechanic of TFT Set 8, and with the recent system change to the augment rerolls, there's now pretty niche comps that you can try to force every game. This is because heroes are typically 1, 2 or 3 cost units, which are way easier to get than others, so here's our top low cost options for you to pick. Let's start with the lowest of the low, our 1 cost carry augments. Starting off, we have the Lulu Growth Spurt augment. Now when you think about Lulu, you might think of her as the filler Gadgeteen you only need in the early and mid game to get that extra Gadgeteen item for your board. But did you know that Lulu's carry augment Growth Spurt can actually turn her from a cute yordle and trait filler to an insanely powerful carry? Well, this is because she'll gain infinite stacking bonus health and AP whenever she casts her ability. So the only thing you need for her is to make sure she casts as often as possible whilst also stalling the fight for her as long as you can. Blue buff is definitely mandatory, as this will be the key to make her cast as often as possible. After that, you can go for a Hex Deck Gunblade to ensure healing on her, and lastly go for more damage in something like a Jeweled Gauntlet. Since you'll be slow rolling at level 4 and 5 for Lulu to 3-star her, it only makes sense to play her alongside other low cost units and synergies you see along the way. That means slot in the infamous Supers trio Gangplank, Lee Sin and Malphite, as well as the low cost mascots Galio, Nasus and Yuumi. This will give you the damage needed with Supers active, the toughness needed with 4 mascots in the front line, and then to top it off with Sona to activate Heart 4. Our next carry hero is the lowest cost Star Guardian, Lux. Her carry augment Illuminating Singularity can literally one-shot enemy teams in a matter of seconds. This is because she'll gain tons of damage on every second ability cast. So again, the more often you get her to cast, the faster the enemy team disappears from the board. You can literally build the same items on her like Lulu. Blue buff for multiple casts, Hextech Gunblade to heal your frontline and herself back up again, and lastly extra damage with Jeweled Gauntlet. You want to make sure you activate Star Guardian when you're playing her, and since you'll also be slow rolling, you'll look at Rel and Yuumi. Adding Lulu, Poppy and Annie will further activate your Gadgeteen, Heart and Defender. And finally, if you add Alistair too, he'll bring Ox Force and Mascots with it, which is mandatory for your main tank, Annie. The only real downside for Lux though is that her targeting is totally random and there's no target follow up once she throws her Luminous ult. So you might see her waste some ultimates when enemy units start to move and change their positioning. But the randomness just adds to the fun part of this comp, especially if Lux decides to blow up the enemy carry in the very first few seconds of the fight. The last 1 cost hero carry we want to include here is none other than Sir Crocodile. Renekton carry was super popular on the PBE before the live server release of Set 8, and Reign of Anger has brought him back. This augment will give him tons of base attack speed and even more attack speed the more health that he loses. So you want to play him alongside his beefy brawler companions Jax, Riven, Sejuani, Vi and Blitzcrank. Soraka will be the last addition in this comp as she'll activate Heart and Admin for your team. For items, you want to make your Crocodile as angry as you can, so he starts slicing them up one by one. So go for Quicksilver for the initial attack speed bonus, but more importantly the CC immunity. Then you want to go for Bloodthirster for more sustain, and if you think about it, the more he heals, the more health he can lose, which means he'll constantly gain more attack speed. Finally, to make his barrel of anger overflow, go for a Rage Blade last, and he'll absolutely carry you into a top 4 position. If you do want to give these augment specific comps a try, check out our meta comps tier list that's frequently updated by all of our challenger experts. The link is in the description. Moving on to our 2 cost heroes now. The difference between 2 cost heroes and 1 cost heroes from the previous section is that you actually want to start a slow roll at level 6 now, and not at level 5. Our first carry is an AP Anima squad, and you guessed it right, it's Powder Jinx. Usually the only AP Anima squad carry you'll see in an Anima squad comp is Misfortune, but you should definitely keep an eye on the Jinx Get Excited hero augment. This gives her additional attack and movement speed which will be tripled whenever she scores a takedown. With the right itemization on her, you can get her to always reactivate that triple bonus, and she'll start blowing up enemy boards in seconds. You want to give her a Spear of Shojin, a Jeweled Gauntlet, and lastly a Static Shiv. This is obviously best played if you get a 3 Anima squad opener to start stacking fame stacks from the get-go. Ideally, you also want to get an additional Anima squad heart or emblem to be able to play 7 Anima squad and 3 Prankster with Silas, Echo, Misfortune, Riven, Vayne, Zoe, and Nasus. Try it for yourself if you see the augment and let Jinx turn enemy little legends into dust. Our second 2 cost hero is a rather unusual carry, as it's not a damage dealer but the tank frontliner Lee Sin. Cleansing Safeguard is probably one of the strongest frontline you can get your hands on, and other than all the previous comps, this one doesn't actually want you to 3-star your carry. That's because Cleansing Safeguard will decrease the mana cost of Lee Sin's ultimate, and it will heal him whenever he casts. Now the reason you don't want to 3-star Lee Sin is because you want to play a Lee Sin duo in the frontline, and here's why. 2 Lee Sins 2-star will constantly shield each other in the frontline. Now since you'd always play this frontline in a heart comp alongside the units Soraka, Syndra and Sona, your team will gain stacking AP with each one of their ult casts. So add 1 and 1 together, you'll have 2 heart frontliners that are shielding and healing themselves for days because Lee Sin's shield ability scales infinitely with the stacking AP from their heart class. Now, unless the enemy team can burst one of your Lee Sin frontliners down immediately, they'll just become unkillable over time, whilst your backline gets stronger and stronger with every second. Moving on to 3-cost heroes now, and these are usually heroes you can fit into every single comp, whether you're playing a comp focused solely around them or only field them for their hero bonus. But there's actually one 3-cost hero carry augment that we just have to cover. We're talking about Spread Shot Vayne, which doesn't sound too exciting, but it's actually her itemization which makes this build so much fun. Spread Shot will increase the damage of Vayne's ultimate, whilst also making her fire her bolts at 2 other enemies. So when you think of itemization on Vayne, you instantly think of AD items. But when picking her with the Spread Shot augment, the most important item is actually blue buff. She actually has a really low mana pool, which means she'll spread her true damage ult casts multiple times, wiping entire enemy front lines in the blink of an eye. Once you've got that blue buff on her, you can simply go for 2 more damage items like Deathblade or Giant Slayer. Other than that, you'll play this comp with a full Recon backline by adding in Kai'Sa, Ezreal and Ashe, and also the threats Cho'Gath and Rammus in the front line. So next time when you think about the duel list, remember that there are some unconventional ways to itemize your heroes. And that's going to wrap up our list of niche but super strong heroes you have to try out in TFT Set 8. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to never miss out on new ways to carry your games.